Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my thoughts. This is the fourth episode, and today we'll be talking about Hawkeye. Now, just to recap what this series is, I'll be going through all of the MCU Phase 4 Disney Plus shows. I'll be ranking them from 1 being the best to 7 being the worst, and then I will be ranking all the movies. So, before I do a recap of where the series have been placed so far, I just want to give you guys a tentative schedule because for the next 2 weeks, you guys will actually be getting 2 releases per week. This Hawkeye episode should be going out on Wednesday, and then you should be getting Loki on the typical Saturday. Then the next week, you should be getting Falcon the Winter Soldier, and then Friday, the release date of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, you should be getting WandaVision. So then what should happen after that is I will be finishing up my power level video for the past 4 series that have been released, ending with Wakanda Forever, uploading that, and then following that, once I've sort of collected my thoughts on Wakanda Forever and ranked it within the Phase 4 movies, I'll be doing my Phase 4 movies, my thoughts, and then going from there. But today, we are here talking about Hawkeye. And again, sorry, quickly, just to recap, Moon Knight is currently the highest ranked show. It is the third best show out of the 7. She-Hulk ranks 6th out of 7, and then Miss Marvel ranks 7th out of 7. So let's talk about Hawkeye. So Hawkeye, out of the 6 original Avengers, is probably the weirdest because he has had some of the most character development out of all of them, but we haven't seen it. Most of Hawkeye's character development, including getting his family, turning into Ronin, dealing with his medical conditions, has happened off screen. And it's something that I think sets his character apart from all the other original Avengers, as most of the other Avengers, we saw their on-screen and are continuing to see their on-screen development, and Hawkeye, we really didn't see any of it. Now, Hawkeye's been around in the comics for a long time. He first appeared in Tales of Suspense number 57 in 1964. Now, his counterpart that we meet in this series, Kate Bishop, didn't appear until 41 years later, believe it or not, in 2005's Young Avengers number 1. And while both of them sort of have the gimmick or the everyone sorts to joke about the fact that Hawkeye's just a dude with a bow and arrow and Kate Bishop's just a chick with a bow and arrow, they're both, I think, very important parts of the Avengers. They tend to place humanity back in the Avengers, and they put things in perspective. You know, they're 2 people willing to go out there and fight for what they believe in, and they only have a bow and arrow. And I think that sets them apart from other characters. And I think the most important thing to know before we jump into the Hawkeye series is that one thing that was very interesting about this series is this was the first really seasonal related Disney Plus show. Outside of Werewolf by Night, which just released, of course, that's not a Disney Plus show, it's a special. Hawkeye was a Christmas special or a Christmas series. If you really want to dive into it, this was intended to be a series that you could watch with your family at Christmas for the coming Christmas seasons and, sort of act as a tradition of sorts. And, I'm going to keep that in mind as I talk about this series. And, I don't know if it will enhance or hurt the overall ranking. You're going to have to wait and see that. But, I think it's important to note that they really did something out of the box compared to all the other series that we've seen thus far. So to start off with the pros, I think right off the bat, we have to talk about Clint Barton and Kate Bishop's relationship. I think that the strongest thing that this series does is it takes its 2 main characters and we thoroughly get to see the evolution of their friendship. And I know that there might be some complaints that this relationship sort of was created and developed within a week. I don't really see that as a weakness. I see it as very strong writing. The fact that we were able to see, okay, Hawkeye goes to meet Kate Bishop, not intentionally, but to get back his suit. Through that, they are forced to work together. Hawkeye absolutely cannot stand her, but through the trials and tribulations they go through, he really starts to trust her, and at the very end, she opens up and tells him how much she admires him. And I think that's a very effective storytelling, and again, I really think that this is one of the stronger parts of the series, especially with a lot of the newer Avengers characters that we're getting. Think America Chavez with Doctor Strange and Love with Thor from Thor Love and Thunder. We don't have this real mentor mentee relationship build up with those characters yet. And maybe it'll come, but I think this is why this stands out of all the relationships, is that we truly got to see a mentor mentee relationship, and it was phenomenal. I think Jeremy Renner did a fantastic job as Clint Barton, as always, and we'll get into Haley Steinfeld's performance as Kate Bishop in a little bit. Something else I thought that was really good was the supporting characters in this show. I mean, I'm talking about everybody from the LARPers to Echo. I thought that the characters that they used within this show were just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, Grills, for example, is someone who in most other series you would completely overlook a character like Grills, but he's become a fan favorite just because of how funny he is. You even look at Echo now, who has spawned her own TV series. Now, I know that there are some people who are not huge fans of Echo. I personally like Echo, but the fact that she's able to get her own TV series, it says something about her effectiveness as a character. And I think that Hawkeye does this in a way where most other series couldn't. I mean, even in some series, to go back to Moon Knight, for example, you think about Layla, who was really the second most important character, arguably, outside of Arthur Harrow, and she was really sort of forgettable. Not throwing shade at her at all. I think she's a phenomenal character, but compared to a character like Grills, she did not have the fan support around her that he did, which is sort of surprising because, again, Grills was meant to be a throwaway character. Same with Echo, and even people like the Tracksuit Mafia. The dude who was worried about taking his girlfriend to a concert and trying to figure out what concert they wanted to go see. I mean, just great world building and just overall phenomenal supporting characters. I think Hawkeye arguably might have the best supporting characters out of any MCU show. Now let's talk about Haley Steinfeld. I think she was an absolutely perfect casting for Kate Bishop. Kate Bishop in the comics is sort of this, I don't want to say brat, but she's very independent. She has her own thoughts. She's a very she's her own person, and she is unabashedly herself. And I think Haley Steinfeld perfectly captured that. She thought that she was invincible at times, but she knew she wasn't really invincible when push comes to shove, but that didn't matter to her. She really wanted to fight for what she believed in, and she was someone who wanted to take it upon herself since she was a little girl to defend her family. And surprisingly, I think that Haley Steinfeld was the perfect casting. I think that a lot of times in these Marvel series or TV shows, you could probably say, okay, well, there are, maybe a few other people who could have played this character. But in my opinion, I think Haley Steinfeld was just the absolute perfect casting as Kate Bishop. And she just owns the role. She gives a great performance. And she's one of the stronger parts of the show. And the last part that I'm going to talk about is something that I think Marvel does a very good job at, but we don't see enough of it. And that is repercussions for actions. And the one thing I like about this series is that we really see Hawkeye's repercussions for everything that he's done, not only as Ronan, but also as an Avenger. Now, I'll get into why I don't think this is my strongest pro argument, and granted, that's why it's last on here. But I think it's important to see, Hawkeye having to have a hearing aid in. Because, unlike all these other superheroes, he's just a normal human. So all these explosions and breaking through glass and falling from buildings, that's going to wear and tear on his body. And I think that was important for us to see, and I really enjoyed that part and that decision to let us see the stuff that Hawkeye has to do to recover from going out and fighting. Now the cons. Kingpin, you are going to hear me harp on this, was a pointless cameo. And I know what you're going to say. That might be a hot take, but hear me out here. I think it would have been 10 times better if Echo had a change of heart and Kazi was the one who ultimately, led the big battle at the very end of the series. You can still have everything with Yelena. You can still have, everything with the tracksuit mafia. But then in a post-credit scene, make it known that Kingpin was the boss that was working above everyone else. And then you can explore that more in the Daredevil series. Have Kate Bishop come back and work with Daredevil to fight Kingpin. Something like that. I think that, just bring him in, it felt like a pointless, hey, you need to check out the finale because Kingpin's coming in, when they really didn't need to do that. I think most people, they had their attention and they were really enjoying the series. And again, it just felt like a pointless cameo because this was a character we hadn't seen in a long time. This was coming right off of Daredevil appearing in Spider-Man No Way Home. And again, I just think it could have been done differently. Now, don't get me wrong. Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin is a phenomenal character, a phenomenal villain. But again, I think how they introduced him into the MCU was a little rushed and a little half-hearted. Something I'll also say is that Echo's change of heart felt really rushed. Again, I think that she really, just out of nowhere, decided to completely abandon everything. We sort of saw the build-up from it during the series, but there was never a point within the series that I was like, oh yeah, this is Echo's breaking point. This is when she's going to stop. Maybe it would have been different if we saw her witness, Kingpin telling Ronan to kill her father or something like that, but we didn't see that, and it just sort of felt out of left field a bit. It wasn't the most complete out of left field thing, but just having her randomly stick to her guns about hating Hawkeye, thinking, Hawkeye is off of her trying to collect the information about Ronan and things of that nature, using the watch, to all of a sudden going up and shooting Kingpin and killing Kazi. It just felt like a very rushed change of heart, and I wish they would have done it differently. But again, that's really a slight complaint, because again, I really did enjoy Echo's character as a whole. And my last thing, sort of push back on my repercussions argument, Hawkeye really did walk away with very little repercussion for what he did as Ronin. And I say that, and when I do say that, I mean essentially Hawkeye was able to walk away scot-free for killing people, and no one sort of batted an eye at it. Even Kate Bishop, whose whole thing is having a moral character who wants to do good, she sort of just looks past the fact that Hawkeye killed people, and I think that that's an issue. Again, I thought that how they showed the injuries he faced during battle and how it impacted his body and everything like that, that was good. But again, I wish they would have been more intentional with saying, hey, Hawkeye's not just going to walk away from this one, without getting a slap on the wrist for everything he did as Ronin. And you could say that all of the, trials and tribulations they had to go through in this series was punishment enough. But still, it was very unrealistic that a person who was a mercenary would just walk away, especially with, I think, it being, and I won't say clear, but by the end of the series, I think more people than not having an idea of who Ronan actually was. So now let's get to my best and worst episode. My best episode, in my opinion, is episode 4, Partners, Am I Right? So this is really where we start to see the turning point of Clint and Kate's relationship. And I thought it was absolutely perfectly expanded. This is the first episode where Clint sends her on a mission. She goes back, works with the LARPers, And then they go to try and find Echo's apartment and to get, or not to find Echo's apartment, to find the watch and get it from Echo's apartment. And this leads into one of my other favorite parts of the series. We see not only a side of Clint that we haven't seen before, but we also get a perfect reveal from Yelena. This is the episode where Clint really sort of becomes vulnerable with Kate. And you see Kate try to be there for him. And I think that's something that Hawkeye really hadn't experienced. I think it was something where, everyone had sort of seen him as this hero, but didn't care about what he was suffering from behind the scenes. And to see Kate care for him in that way, it was beautiful. And again, Yelena, her cameo was not pointless because, again, it had a point. I'll talk about it more when we get to the Black Widow movie review. But I thought Yelena's reveal was perfect. I thought that she stayed in the series for, what she needed to do. She didn't overstay her welcome. And again, it was overall just a great episode. One of the best on Disney Plus, in my opinion. Now, the worst episode, I have to say, is the last episode, episode 6, So This Is Christmas. Again, my biggest complaint is Kingpin. Why did we have to use him again? Keep it cozy. Have a post-credit scene where it's revealed that Kingpin was really the dude behind it all, and go on from there. No need to introduce him. The big cinematic battle was very cliche. Now, granted, it was one of the better battles, and I think that in Hawkeye specifically, it makes sense to have a big arrow shootout with a bunch of baddies. But, overall, very cliche Marvel. And then lastly, most of the characters outside of Kate and Clint seem to have very rushed development in this episode. Again, you have Yelena, who just quickly forgives Barton, and we really don't get to see what happens after that. And Echo just quickly turning on her uncle and killing Kazi. It was a very sort of rushed progression, in my opinion. So with that being said, now it's time to get to the rankings, and I am ranking Hawkeye my second best Disney Plus show out of the 7. I think it is absolutely phenomenal. I think that if you look at all the pros I had versus the cons, there were much more pros. I could go on and on about this show. I think it is just great. I've watched it 3 times. That is how much I enjoy it. And I do understand that this is not everyone's favorite show, but for me, it is one of the best. I don't think it is the best, so now you can break that down to there being only 3 options left for what the best show is. And again, I really encourage everybody to either watch Hawkeye if they haven't, or to rewatch it if they have, and try to look for the things that I talked about in this episode. But if you disagree, as always, please leave a comment down below. I'm always willing to listen and hear out any and all complaints. And I want to thank you all for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, share this video with a friend. And again, please give me your comments and feedback down below. And I will see you all on Saturday for my Loki episode. Have a great one, and I will see you then.